Will you let us in?
No, we will not let you in. And that happens to be a little clip of what we're talking about tonight. But first, I'm Matt,
I'm Kyla.
And I'm Chris.
the new guy, and this is Bump in the Night. All right, Night Owls, welcome back to episode 8. As you saw or heard, whichever if you're watching on YouTube or listening, we have a guest tonight that hopefully will be here on a regular basis. This is Chris. He is my best buddy. I've known him for, 16 going on 17 years.
Sounds right.
Long ass fucking time. Anyway, he's joining us because tonight we're talking about black-eyed children or black-eyed kids. But first, little housekeeping as usual. I have to thank all of you guys for continuing to support us. It's been really cool seeing all the love. Don't forget to go check out the Instagram, which has some interesting pictures and stuff on there. Like I said last time, the depictions of the torture devices are up, so you can go see those lovely things like the sawing, which my wife loves so much.
It's my favorite.
And then the YouTube, which I believe Chris and I are actually going to do a reaction video on some clips of supposed black-eyed children caught on camera.
Yes.
So that will be fun. Chris is kind of a pansy when it comes to scary stuff, so it should be interesting to see his reactions.
Truer words were never spoken on that one.
The first time in high school that he ever hung out, stayed the night at my house, we watched The Grudge, and I learned quickly that my buddy was kind of a baby when it came to scary because I turned around and he was hiding behind pillows.
Same though.
And just peeking over the top. So
That's very true.
Do you remember the first time we watched a scary movie together?
Is it hot in here? It's hot in here.
I get really hot when I'm scared, which is funny because I'm never hot. I never run hot. And I was so hot. We were sitting there
Conjuring.
watching. I was The Conjuring.
Yep.
It was my idea to watch them too. And I have seen them before.
And she was.
I was getting so worked up and I was so hot. I'm like, I said, it's hot in here. It's hot. And I'm like taking my clothes off. It was great.
I highly recommend naked women while watching a horror movie. Good
You
times.
should just be glad that I didn't do that when we were watching scary movies.
I've seen you naked. It wouldn't be anything different.
Ditto.
Fair. If you're not a little gay with your best friend, are you really best friends?
Nope.
No.
Anyway, back to the topic at hand. We are going to be talking about black-eyed kids, which is a very interesting phenomenon. I know you don't know anything about it.
I know nothing about it. I hadn't ever heard of it until you brought it up the other day.
Chris, I'm pretty sure you've heard a little bit.
A little bit. Most of it's been from Ghost Adventures, Ghost Hunters. I mean, just your typical paranormal shows that come up on the TV. That's pretty much it. I have a vague knowledge.
Well, to dive right into it, they are a relatively new phenomenon. The earliest that I could find is the first reported incident was in the 1950s. But it really blew up starting, the 70s and 80s had some, but it really started blowing up in the 90s. And it really, in now modern times, it comes up quite often, is these encounters. But the 1950s, kind of, and we'll get into that later, kind of what these guys are. There might be a legend that goes back farther, but the earliest that I could find was 1950s, and I will actually tell you that story later on. But what are black-eyed kids exactly? Like, what are you getting when you run into them? Any ideas? Chris, I know you got some.
I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory.
You would think so, but not really.
The most recent thing that I can think of from a black-eyed children sighting was somebody peered into a window and saw literally like two kids standing in a window, and their eyes were jet black.
I'm kind of just imagining like Supernatural, like the demons.
Exactly
Their
like
eyes
that.
are just blacked out.
Exactly like that.
Yep.
Yeah.
So yeah, basically that's what you run into. Is generally they take the form of a child, usually between the ages of 6 to 16. There's only been a couple cases that I've read that they are older or younger than that. They generally are in the 6 to 16 range, and usually there's a younger one and an older one together. So what generally happens is a person is home or in their vehicle, and there is a knock on the door. And when they look outside, there are two children standing there. Two. There's actually been cases of like 4 kids there.
Oh no,
Nope.
Well, I mean, here's the thing about black-eyed kids. There's something, I swear, it happens in scary movies all the time. There's something inherently disturbing about a child being like fucked up, or old people. It's one of the two. They're like extra creepy if they're super young or they're super old.
that's my thing. Is paranormal wise, like I'm good paranormal. I draw the line at kids. I'm like, nuh-uh.
Nope. So you don't like Pet Cemetery when the little kid comes back from the dead and starts killing people?
Or
Never watched it.
You never watched it. Or
Never watched it.
Sinister.
Yeah, that
Sinister's a
one's
good one.
Chris doesn't watch a lot of scary movies. So anyway, like I said, they tend to knock on the door, car door, and people when they go and look out the door, a lot of times they can't see the black eyes right away, but they get this overwhelming feeling of fear and dread that just like washes over them before they even open the door. And you okay there, babe?
I don't like it.
And they always ask for something. They ask for, can you let us come in and use your phone? We need to call my mommy. We need to come in and get dry. They please let us in the car. And one of the cases that we're going to talk about, let us get in the car so you can take us to my mom's house. It's always some sort of question like that. And here's the thing, if they ever show up at your door, don't fucking open the door. Don't let them in, because there's not many stories of them being let in, but there's one that is particularly nasty, and we will discuss that later. But do not let these things in. They are not children. They are fucked up supernatural beings. They're creepy.
They're not demons?
They have a demonic nature. They really do.
People don't know. Spirits, ghosts, demons. We'll get into the legend of what they could be here in a second. But here's the thing, if they're told no, like, no, we're not going to let you in, they start to get pissed. And they will be pushy, and they will get angry, and they will do everything they can to get inside, but they can't actually do it. And I wonder if this has some link with, old school vampires.
That's exactly where my mind went.
They can't come in unless invited in.
Mm-hmm.
And that seems to be the same case with these guys. And generally what happens is they'll be ignored or something, and then they just kind of disappear. But like I said earlier, they're usually 2 children is most of the time the case. And they always seem to be in outdated clothing. Like, it's not modern day clothing. It's always outdated. And
outdated in what sense? I mean,
as in,
considering this started in the 1950s, I mean, like, what are they, like, Renaissance-y?
I don't know about back then, but I'm saying modern times. What a lot of the stories depict is they're wearing clothes from like the 1950s.
So like dapper.
So it's like whatever they haven't quite caught up with modern times.
Gotcha.
And these are particularly disturbing. When they've been heard laughing, it is very high-pitched laughs and giggles, and not only that, child body, adult voice.
Ew, I don't like that.
That's so fucked up.
I don't like that.
It's like, hey, how you doing?
Yo, let me in and use your phone. Anyway, so what exactly are these children? Are they ghosts? Are they demons? What are they? You think they're demons, probably, huh?
Yeah.
Chris, do you think they're demons, or you think
I kind of second that, because I mean, it seems really demonic in nature. It really does.
I am one of those that believe that demons and spirits that are in this world are bound to rules. and limitations. So that explains why they can't come in without being invited.
What's interesting though is the whole inviting thing was very like if you ever were to listen to like the Harry Dresden books, the way they explain why vampires can't come in is because you have a threshold, and when you get into when you have a family and you're making all these memories, you're like building a threshold that they can't cross over. And I'm wondering if that's kind of the same concept with these little bastards.
I mean, even Harry Potter to an extent played on that kind of thing where love is a boundary.
Yeah.
To evil. It is. Love is an actual physical boundary to evil.
Yeah. So when I nobody really knows what they are. But an interesting legend that I found after doing some digging has a possible take on them that is actually set in Native American legends, which I had never heard of until I really started going down this rabbit hole. So the legend is from the Iroquois people. I think that's how it's pronounced. I listened to it earlier, and that's kind of how it was said on Iroquois. It's one of those Iroquois Indians, but they believed that this dark power called the Otkon could take over children and basically possess them almost. That's why demonic, but also kind of. But Otkon is not described as just an essence. It's described as a lizard-like humanoid. Yeah.
So you know,
Chris, go ahead.
Changelings.
Kind of. And actually, we're going to get into that later. Hold on to that thought.
They're like changelings.
Remember, because what are changelings?
They're creatures.
No. What specifically are they?
I don't know.
They're fairies.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So hold on to that thought until the end.
Okay.
So Otakon is described as a lizard-like humanoid that sneaks in and mates with human women, and their offspring, yep, that's fun, are said to be black-eyed, chalky-skinned children. That fits too perfectly.
I have goosebumps right now. I don't.
She does.
Why did that upset me physically?
That's that no. There's so much of that that's not okay.
Well, I mean, you were a white, chalky-skinned child. The only thing you were... She's a skinwalker. Never mind. Oh, no, you're not a skinwalker. You would have died.
That's true.
I
It's
called
been
you
more
out.
than 3 days. I'm fine.
Anyway, these children, the tribes would kill these children after they were born, because they didn't want them to resurrect and become adults. It was also said in their legends that children that wandered alone in the woods could be literally taken over by Otkon, and they would reemerge from the forest with black eyes and pale skin, and they would always act really nervous and repeat themselves over and over again. I couldn't find what they repeated over and over again.
Just probably what they say.
Let me in. I mean, I don't know. Anyway, their whole goal was to destroy the tribe and infect all people with Otkon.
I'm cold now.
You're cold? I'm sorry, it's hot in here.
No, I'm...
Anyway, so the question is, could these offspring of this demonic dark force be what people are seeing? So I'm going to dive into the first reported sightings, which... Are you okay there?
I can't put my shirt on.
Which was in 1950 in Virginia. And it was seen by a 16-year-old boy known only as Harold. So it was out in Virginia. So according to the story, the teenager was walking home one afternoon when he came across another boy leaning against a fence, as if he was waiting for someone. Harold attempted to speak to him, but received no response. He was about to walk off and go on with his journey when the strange boy suddenly said to Harold, "I want to go to your house."
Nope.
"You're going to walk me up to your house."
Nope.
Chris, you and I walked back to your house many a times from high school.
Yep.
I'm glad we never ran into a black-eyed boy demanding that we were going to take him to your house. Because I'm sorry, I was faster than you in high school. I'd have left your ass there.
I'd drop kick them. Fuck them kids.
It would be your luck, though. It would be just some child with like a disability in his eyes, and you just fucking kicked him in the nuts and ran away.
Now you make me feel bad.
Anyway, so he said
That
you're
would-
going to walk. What was that?
I was gonna say that would be my luck, though.
It would be your luck. So you're gonna walk me up to your house. It was then that Harold noticed the blackness of the boy's eyes. There was no white, just solid black. Then something else, even stranger and more chilling, happened. Harold had begun to contemplate turning around and running home as fast as he could when the boy blurted out, "Now don't you run away from me. You're going to walk me up to your house."
Oh,
Nope.
So this has been reported in a lot of
Nope.
the encounters is these kids almost have a kind of a mind controlling ability of almost like putting people in trances. Multiple times in tons of the stories I've read, when they ask to be let in, they not only are they filled with dread and fear, but they're overcome with the desire to open the fucking door. And in most cases, they snap out of it before they do it, but they're like almost hypnotized into
They're compelled.
wanting to do it. So yeah, that's terrifying. Anyway,
Is that they cast suggestion or whatever it is?
roll a wisdom save.
Literally.
Harold turned and ran away faster than his legs had ever carried him, and I don't fucking blame him. He later recalled to his parents the story and that he had heard screams behind him as he ran away. Screams that sounded very similar to that of a bobcat. Now, if you've ever heard that sound, look it up. It
I have
sounds
goosebumps again.
horrifying.
I don't like
it's
it.
terrifying.
I wouldn't be running. I'd be like waddling because my pants would be full. I would. I'm glad I wore the brown pants.
I'd be like literally crying.
You would be crying.
No!
I don't know, man. I'm fat, but I can run pretty fast when I'm
When you're
scared.
fucking scared, man, your body goes into like
I've seen it, guys. He will bowl you the fuck over.
move, bitch.
You look at you and be like, my bro's on X Games mode.
Surprisingly, his parents actually believed his account. So much so that the father was said to have grabbed his gun and immediately went out looking for this boy. His mother, this sounds about right, apparently thought her son had encountered the devil himself and stated that she would take him to a local priest.
I mean, do you blame her though? For like, what else are you supposed to think?
We're gonna pray away the black-eyed children.
Well, that time, I mean, Christian
Yeah, I mean,
religion
his
was,
story,
you
and the way
know,
that he described it and stuff, like, I might even fucking consider that, and I'm not even religious.
Just sage me.
I would as fuck.
well, I mean, like we were saying though, you got to think of that at that point in time,
Yeah.
and with the Christian religion, I mean, literally, if I was back then and didn't know about any of this other like saging things like that, that would be my first response too. It'd be like, boy, we're gonna take you to the pastor. You getting an exorcism?
So,
Right meow.
right meow, we're gonna go
Right
get
meow.
you an exorcism. So that was, oh, excuse me, that was the first recorded.
And so that one was in the 50s.
That was the 50s. And then there were I saw some stories from the 70s and 80s, but the one that really grasped the public, because it was actually reported on the news, was not until the 90s. It was in 1998 by a gentleman named Brian Bethel. And he's pretty much the first person in, I would say, modern times to report black-eyed children, and they didn't show up at his house. These motherfuckers will show up anywhere. So it was 9:30 on January 16th, 1998, and Brian had just left his apartment in Abilene, Texas, to go to a Dropbox to pay his internet bill. Back in the day when you had to have a Dropbox to pay your bills. On the way, he stopped at the Dollar movie theater next to his service provider's building to use the glow of the marquee as light to make out his check. As he did this, there was a knock on the window, and he saw two young boys. He placed them between 10 and 14 years old, and this is how he described the boys. Boy number one was slightly taller than his companion, wearing a pullover hooded shirt with a sort of gray checkered pattern in jeans. He couldn't make out his shoes, but his skin was olive colored and he had curly, medium length brown hair. And for some reason, he said he exuded an air of quiet confidence. At least the demons are confident. Boy number two had pale skin with a trace of freckles. His primary characteristics seemed to be looking around nervously. He was dressed in a similar manner of his companion, but his pullover was light green, and his hair was a sort of pale orange. So it's basically a young Chris.
Hi. I'm not one of them. It's okay.
They didn't appear to be related, at least directly. So almost immediately, he knew something was up, and he felt this intense sense of fear. The first boy began to tell Bethel that they needed help. They wanted to see the new Mortal Kombat movie. Mortal Kombat! No, Chris? Come
No.
on, Chris.
Not well, I was. Is this the same? This the same guy, or is this a different one?
No, this is Bethel. This is
The one
Bethel
in
the 90s. God,
oh man,
Chris and I watched Mortal Kombat all the time.
those were the good ones, man.
Yeah,
Are
this was
you kidding me?
back in theaters. But anyway, he wanted to see the new Mortal Kombat movie, but forgot their money. Instead of asking for money itself, the boys asked for a lift to their house to retrieve it. So he was obviously nervous and hesitant as the first boy continued to try and coax him, saying things like, "Come on, mister, we just want to go to our house, and we're just two little boys."
Ew, that's creepy in itself.
So when they have to clarify that they're just two little boys, they're not just
two little boys.
And things like, "Come on, mister, let us in. We can't get in your car until you do. Just let us in. And we'll be gone before you know it. We'll go to our mother's house." So it's that convincing again. Like, just let us in. Brian Bethel, and this is another one of those cases, found himself unlocking the door without realizing it, as if he was instructed by the child to do so. So there's another case of that compulsion. I just lost my spot.
After catching his hands, he
Oh,
looks
yeah, there
back
you
at
go.
the kids with a fresh perspective. That's when he realized that the kids' eyes were solid black. No irises, no pupil. I don't know how to say that word. No sclera.
Solaria.
Sclera.
So yeah,
Black.
black.
Just black.
So he
It kind of seems like at first they have this like facade about them, and you don't notice their eyes until you like catch yourself like rethinking some of the things that they're saying and like questioning it and like what?
and so
Wait, what?
my
Then you notice it.
my thoughts on that again is you mentioned changelings and I mentioned fairies. And what do fairies do? They like to cause mischief.
Mm-hmm.
And they can put on a sort of glamour.
Mm-hmm.
And so again, hold on to all this fairy talk because at the very end we're going to get into that. But so all of the stories of people meeting black-eyed kids claim that once you realize their eyes are black, things tend to get dangerous, which is kind of what you just said. The second boy continued to stand there completely silent while the first boy threatens him, saying, "We won't hurt you. You have to let us in. We don't have a gun." So
I mean, because my first thought is this 10 to 14-year-old kid has a gun. I mean,
more Bethel said that he believed that the boy was implying that they didn't need a gun, which is horrifying.
Oh man.
I don't like that. Yeah.
Mm-mm.
Luckily, the other kids started pulling on the door and demanding to be let in. Luckily, he managed to get his courage up. He pushed his car into reverse and sped the fuck home, leaving the boys where he found them.
Bye, bitch.
I don't
Smart
blame him.
man. Very smart man.
So again, they all seem to have this creepy ass compulsion ability.
Mhm.
And like you said, almost like they make it so you can't see the black eyes, but when you fucking pay attention, and you see through the glamour and you see the black eyes, that's when shit's about to get fucking real.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be the dumbass that wouldn't even notice.
Mm-hmm.
I'm with you on
Yeah.
that one.
Yeah.
Anyway, this was another story that I found that was super interesting and creepy, and it's more modern. I couldn't find the exact date, but I mean, YouTube is in it, so
Okay.
it's
Oh yeah.
relatively new. So, as the person puts it, last night was like any other night. I was switching between listening to music and watching YouTube videos. That didn't sound good. With one headphone in so I could hear my infant daughter. Sorry about the pause. We just heard some sort of glass outside of the room.
Which means my dog is on the counter.
Yeah. Or it could be black-eyed children.
It's the dog.
I half expected the cat, but you said dog. What the?
No, Remus is really tall. Our dog is really, really big.
Oh,
He's a big
that's
boy,
right.
and he can just hop right up, like not like all 4 feet on the counter, but like he just stands up on his back feet, and he's tall enough to get whatever he wants off the counter because he's a little shit. So
He is. Anyway, so this person was watching videos and listening to music with one headphone in and one out so she could hear her infant daughter if she was crying. And it was about 4 a.m. So then she decided to lay down in the spare bed in the baby's room. Just as I dozed off, I heard a thumping coming from the front porch. Startled at first, then I opened my eyes wide and scanned the room, realizing it was most likely my cat scratching himself on the front porch. I dozed back off. Then again, the thumping. Damn it, cat. I got out of bed to run him off the porch, only to see he wasn't there anymore. Now that I was up again, I wasn't the least bit tired. I figured I'd just get some tea and check Facebook while I was up, or maybe finish a web series I was watching on YouTube. A few minutes into the video, I felt a sudden urge to look out the kitchen window. And there they were.
Ew.
Oh no.
Ew.
Oh no.
Oh no.
The tops of 2 short-statured people's heads cresting the stairs just above my window frame.
Oh.
That's okay. I think everybody has this fear, and pretty much everybody has thought of this at one point in time. One of my biggest fears ever is just randomly looking up and looking out the window and meeting eyes with somebody just standing there staring back at me.
Or something.
Honestly, I would almost borderline wish that it was a something rather than a someone. Like, it would be less scary to me to think of a creature or an animal looking back at me rather than a fucking person standing there in my window looking at me. Just, how long have you been there? What are you doing? What you thinking? I don't like this. Just staring at you. Nope.
Yeah, you and I went into that pretty deeply with the skinwalkers because they like to look in the windows.
I am uncomfortable.
Are skinwalkers? Would a skinwalker looking in be worse than two like black-eyed kids?
I don't know.
Buddy, which one would you want?
Honestly, probably the skinwalker because there's only going to be one of them.
I'd have to agree with Kyla. Fuck them kids.
And also, these guys don't have a way to die. Skinwalkers do. Anyway, so saw the tops of their head just above the frame. I heard no footsteps on my porch as my stomach turned, but the knock was a steady, hollow thump. This very same thump I had just blamed on my cat. Deciding it was best not to answer, I shut my laptop and crept by the door back to the baby's room. Fucking smart person.
Oh.
Definitely.
I assumed it was some of the people from the low-income housing across the road from me that were high or hiding from the cops, or maybe looking for my cousin who stays with me often and has many friends over there. The last thing I needed was to try to explain to 2 stoners that I was trying to sleep even though it was 2 a.m. It wasn't until I got to my daughter's room that the creepiness set in. The thump had moved from the kitchen to the bedroom windows. Both windows. A room apart, thumping in perfect time. So they're literally at 2 windows, but they're knocking at the same time.
Oh, no.
Anyway, these stoners were going to wake my daughter up, if I didn't run them off. Pissed off, I went out to the kitchen, unlocked, and opened the door, ready to run around the side of the house and kick some little idiot's ass. It happened then. Standing there looking up at me were two 10 to 11-year-old boys. The feeling of dread and the smell of mold almost made me vomit. This is where it gets interesting. The smaller of the two then spoke. May we use your telegraph?
Oh, what the hell?
And this is something that happens very often in these stories is it's like the clothing. They're not quite with the
modern.
time. It's like they're disconnected from the time. So you hear it a lot. They're saying things that aren't around anymore. And this is a key example, a telegraph. We haven't used a telegraph since what? The 20s? 30s? Even the 40s. I think World War II, we still were. I'm sure the telephone was around then, actually. I don't know exactly when. Anyway, yeah, can we use the, where'd it go? Telegraph. I just stared blankly at the boys, horrified by what I then realized, that their eyes were pitch black. He asked again to use my telegraph. And just so everyone who's actually watching this on YouTube knows, my wife is very nervous right now because she's playing with her hair. I got the creep factor going on her. You okay, baby?
No.
There wasn't a sound to be heard outside. No crickets chirping, no dogs barking, no cars driving by. Absolutely nothing.
When the animals and the bugs and the birds go quiet, that's when you fucking get scared.
That's when a predator's nearby.
That's when you fucking get scared, is if the bugs are quiet. The birds are quiet. Nope.
I tried to play it cool and ignore the fact that he didn't say telephone or phone or cell. Anything like that would have made sense in this situation, but I calmly replied, I don't have service at my house, sorry. The expressions on their face turned to rage as I finished my sentence. Swiftly, I shut the door and locked it as quickly as I could, then stumbled back to protect my daughter. I picked her up from the crib and held her close. The fact that she didn't wake up freaked me out the most. But I managed to gather my senses enough to make sure she was still breathing and warm. Everything seemed okay with her. But then the thumping on the windows were back. I dropped to the floor as close to the wall as I could and held my little girl in my arms and wept like a child. Me fucking too. I felt helpless and afraid. I lied there for what felt like hours and hours, crying and shaking until I heard it, my wife's alarm clock. The thumping stopped the instant the alarm went off, and I crept into the master bedroom with the baby. What's wrong with you? My wife asked. I just had a bad dream, is all I could mutter out. Okay, well, give me the baby so I can feed her before work. I handed my wife the baby, and she fed her like any normal day. I turned on every light in the house and made coffee for her. Me fucking too. When I get scared, I want all the fucking lights on. All of them.
Every light in the house is on.
Yep. Oh God, Chris, imagine if we had learned about black-eyed children trying to close that door in the hallway.
Yeah, I think we would have gone together at that point. I don't think it would have
still would have sent your ass.
I would have done it. I would have been the brave one.
Yeah, backstory on that. Chris and I were probably juniors in high school, and we were watching Ghost Adventures or Ghost Hunters or something like that.
I think it was Ghost Hunters. I want to say it was Ghost Hunters.
And in my house, the back door, we were watching the house for my parents, so it was just Chris and I. And the house that I lived in was out in the country. So it was like pitch black. You want to talk about
dark? It's dark.
Yeah, it was pitch black out there. And we were watching the show, and they were doing an EVP, or not EVP.
No, that was.
Did I get it right? Yeah, EVP.
You know what? No, I think it got caught on the camera though.
Either way, the ghost replied in a creepy voice, "I will do this," and we're like freaking the fuck out. And then we realized we forgot to lock the back door. The hallway back there, the light switch to there is by the fucking door at the very end of the hallway, and there's no curtains on the door, and Chris and I were freaking the fuck out, and we rock paper scissored it, and that motherfucker lost. Even though it was my house, I made him go do.
So set the mood. So out in the country, getting spooked by the scary show. Go to the dark hall because we forgot the fact that we locked the back door. Staring out into a dark abyss. It's just we were both like we just wanted to nope the fuck back to the couch.
Yep.
But eventually I was just like, it's time to nut up or shut up. Ran at the door, locked it real quick, and ran back. Was like, yeah. I was done after that. I was like, I'm done. But then we continued to watch more, so you know.
Yeah, we did. We're idiots. Anyway, all of this basically, I'm not going to go through the rest of this because it's essentially just him freaking the fuck out the rest of the day, sending his wife on his way, locking the doors, turning all the lights on all day. But it does bring up something that's interesting. And this is something that is going to scare both of you, especially since you're listening to this now. It tends to come up very often that black-eyed kids only seem to visit people that know about black-eyed kids. And it seems like the more you talk about them, the more likely they are to show up.
Don't worry, after this podcast, I will completely forget about them.
Not us. We have kids knocking on our door all the fucking time trying to play with Kale, and now we're gonna just like kick him in the chest and shut the door.
You're gonna pull a gun on one of them.
I have shiny rocks and sage. I'm okay.
You're gonna sage the house after this, aren't you?
The house.
She's gonna sage the house after this.
Protect.
So anyway, it's about to get worse.
No.
Oh, yay.
Because these three stories are people that encountered black-eyed children at their home or on the vehicle, but none of them let the kids get into the house.
Don't tell me that's where this is going.
But what happens when you do?
No.
No.
This next encounter is exactly that. No, God, you're shaking the table, woman.
Sorry, I don't like it.
Anyway, the story goes, because this has some terrifying results. Let me start by saying that I know how hard this will all be to believe, but now that things have taken a turn for the worse, I started looking for stories similar to mine and found Weak and Weird. I feel like I should share this story with someone, and your website seems like the right place. I made the mistake of letting black-eyed kids inside, and now I'm worried that I might die because of it.
Oh, God.
I hope this will be a warning to everyone who is ever in the position to make the same mistake that I did. I live just outside of a rural town in Vermont. It's a tight-knit community where everyone knows one another and people don't lock their doors at night, which is your first fucking mistake because fresh air is for dead people. Yeah, you heard me. That's why I don't leave windows open and stuff.
Yes, you do.
Not downstairs. I don't leave them open ever.
Okay, maybe not downstairs.
Nope. Anyway, there's never been a need to. A little over a year ago, I woke up because I heard a loud banging on my front door. At the time, my husband and I lived in a small home on a dirt road just off the rural route into town. It was the middle of a snowstorm, and the nearby hills get very slippery in the snow, so I thought that someone might have been in an accident and broken down. It's happened before. When I looked out the window, I could see that our motion spotlight was on. I could see that there were footprints in the snow that had come from our road and into our driveway, but there was no car anywhere. So at least we know these are actual corporeal beings, because if they leave footprints, that means there's something there.
Yeah.
Which again makes me think demon, not spirit.
Yeah, I'm leaning towards the demon as well. Or actually, no, I'm leaning towards the last story, to be honest with you. Anyway, the snow was still covering the road and no one had driven on it for at least a couple hours. Our front door was obscured from the window, but I could see that someone was standing there. I wasn't sure what to think, so I woke my husband up just to feel safer. While I was telling him what was going on, the banging on the door started again, and my husband went to answer it while I stood in the hallway. When he opened the door, there was 2 children standing in the snow looking toward the ground. There were a boy and a girl, and could not have been more than 8 years old. First off, like middle of the night, why are these 8-year-olds just showing up at my door?
Nope.
See, that's where I would be like so confused, so confused.
Well, and that's what's so disarming about him is like, who's going to just turn away children?
Yeah,
I mean, I am now. I don't care what fucking child is coming to my door. It could be my own child. You're not coming in anymore.
Never going for a fucking hike in the woods.
that's why I always look outside of my
Not
window.
helping anybody screaming or calling for help.
Nope.
Yep.
Not helping children that come to the door.
That's
Check.
what this podcast has done. I am helping no one. Children, freaking hikers that have been attacked by a bear. Nothing. I'm not helping them. Nope. Sorry. I'll call 911.
I'm gonna die because I would still help them.
Nope.
You know, I always look every time. I always look out my front window because I can see my front steps, and I'm like, "Yeah, I don't know who you are. Go away."
Fuck off. Just
Pretty
out
much.
the window. I can see Chris out the window.
Fuck
Fuck off.
off.
Hey, right, fuck off.
Ah, fuck you.
We're all South Park fans here. Haha. Fuck
Ah,
you.
fuck you.
Anyway, they were dressed strangely and had odd haircuts. The girl's hair was very long and straight, and the boy had a dated haircut that looked almost like a bowl cut. Again, not with the times. I feel like part of me feels like, again, this is going to go with the thing at the end with the fairies, but an alternate dimension that isn't quite on point with ours is where I lean towards it.
I don't believe in
Yeah.
With fairies?
No.
Anyway, the fae.
No.
See,
Anyway,
that's one thing that would throw me off really like bad too, is seeing like you said, the haircuts and then the period clothing.
Yeah.
Like
Okay, but
it's just that's so random.
you can get and buy those now though.
No, that's true. It's just that would just be so random though. Just it's like, okay, there's 2 kids in period clothing standing at my door.
Here's the thing. I feel like here in Portland, it probably wouldn't be as weird just because people dress like that all the time. In Hermiston, though, that would be fucking weird.
Yeah.
That would be really weird. Anyway, they weren't dressed for winter, and my first thought was they must have been Mennonite children. But as far as I know, there was never a large community of Mennonites near us. Thinking back on it, I know that my normal reaction to seeing children in a snore
Snur.
snore.
Oh my god.
Oh no.
We don't want to see children in the snoo. Move on. Moving on. Not what we're doing here.
Snowstorm would have been to rush them inside and bundle them up with some blankets and hot cocoa. That's not how I felt. These children were very unnerving. They would not make eye contact, and when my husband asked them if everything was okay, they simply asked if they could come in. My husband looked at me like, what do I do? And I asked the kids where their parents were. They simply said they will be here soon.
Nope. I know. I feel like I know where this is going, the story, and I don't like it, and I want to leave.
That's a negative, Ghost Rider. You can stay outside in the cold snow.
I want to leave. Can I leave? Okay.
You signed up for this. You have to listen to it all.
Okay.
Whew, that one gave me the chills. They will be here soon. It's like, fuck you.
All right, let's go. Okay.
It's only going to get worse, guys. So
Okay, let's go.
it was around 2. It was around 2:00 in the morning at this point. So the only reasonable thought in my head was there must have been an accident or these kids got lost. As much as my instincts told me not to bring them inside, I did anyway. I went into the kitchen to make them some hot cocoa while my husband took them into the living room. While I was fixing the kettle, I could hear my husband talking to the kids. He was asking them if they were okay, where they came from, how far they walked, if their parents' car was broken down, things like that. But they always answered, our parents will be here soon.
Oh no.
They spoke in a singy-song voice. Our parents will be here soon. You okay there, baby?
Nope.
And what was interesting was they weren't afraid to be in a stranger's home at all. That's when I started to notice that our cats, we had 4, were all hiding except for Pigeon, who was in the kitchen with me. Normally, our cats are very curious and friendly, and we have to be careful that they don't run out the door when we leave. This time, none of them even tried to see who was here, which I thought was very strange. All of the hair on Pigeon's neck was standing up, and his tail was puffed up while he looked in the living room.
That cat was fucking pissed and
Oh.
scared.
Don't get attached to the cats. When I bent down to pet him and see what was wrong, he hissed and started growling and backed up until he had hid himself under the kitchen island. I had never seen him do that before. I see that face. You're going to have to wait. The questioning.
My eyes are fucking huge right now, but you can't tell because of the computer
I
screen.
want the cats to die.
You're not going to like this story then.
Can I leave?
Nope. Anyway, when I walked back into the living room, the kids were sitting on the couch, as still as can be, but my husband was holding his head in his hands. I asked him what's wrong, and he just said that he felt very dizzy all of a sudden, but he was fine. I turned back to the children to give them their cocoa, but when they looked up at me, I gasped. It took everything inside of me not to drop the mugs and run away. When they looked at me, their eyes were completely black. They had no whites, just giant black pupils.
Throw the fucking hot cocoa in their face.
Jesus Christ.
No, fuck that.
I'm going to see a newspaper article that Hermiston man assaults child with hot cocoa. And it's because Chris just saw some shadows and he thought it was black-eyed children, which is like,
So no, you don't stop there. You don't just throw the hot cocoa. You throw the hot cocoa, and then when they're distracted, because they're, you know,
beat him with the mug.
Fucking nail them with the mug.
Jesus Christ, I'm going to see a fucking newspaper article about Chris burning children with hot cocoa, and I'm going to get a phone call from the police because my wife has beat a child in my neighborhood senseless with a fucking Kylo Ren coffee mug.
You know what's gonna happen, Kyla's, is it's gonna happen to both of us around Halloween.
No.
When they saw that I was scared, they stood up and asked if they could use the bathroom. I tried to be as composed as I could, and I showed them down the hall. They went into the bathroom together. I hurried back to my husband to ask him if he had seen their eyes. He had seen them too and said that it looked like his brother's badly bruised eyes after a car accident. No. He had seen them, or I just read that. We were in the middle of talking about whose children they could be when my husband's nose started to bleed.
Oh.
He had never had nosebleeds as long as I had known him. I just knew inside myself that this had something to do with the kids in the bathroom, and I started crying while I ran to get my husband some tissues. That's when the power went out. I heard my husband yell my name from the living room as I started to walk back through the hallway. I stopped dead in my tracks. The children were standing at the end of the hallway. They weren't moving, and I had never been so scared in my whole life. They just stood there in the dark.
I'm gonna throw up.
It's not over yet.
I'm gonna throw up.
Oh my God.
After what I felt like was forever, the boy said, "Our parents are here."
No.
And they
Oh
stood
no
up,
no.
and they stood up and walked out the door. And they just left the door wide open. My husband jumped up to go close it and almost fell over. We looked out the window and saw 2 men standing by a black car idling at the end of our driveway. The men looked like they were wearing black colored suits and were very tall, at least 6 feet. When my husband waved at them, they just stared at us, got into the car, and drove off. Our power came back on a half an hour later, but nothing was the same after that. Over the next few months, 3 of our cats went missing. We can only assume they ran away somewhere and never came back, but the worst thing was coming home to find Pigeon and a puddle of blood on the living room floor.
What the fuck?
He looked like he had been vomiting blood. The vet told us he had had some kind of hemorrhage. Yeah, and that's not all. After my husband's after my husband's nosebleeds became a regular occurrence, we went to see the doctor. He didn't know what to make of it other than dry nasal passages, but my husband was diagnosed with an aggressive skin cancer. When the doctor asked us if he used tanning beds, we both thought he was joking. But apparently, this kind of melanoma is linked to overuse of indoor tanning. The doctors think he will recover, but don't understand how it got so bad so quickly. My husband has never worked an outdoor job and spends relatively little time in the sun. Since we let the black kids inside our home, I have also suffered from regular dizzy spells and nosebleeds on a regular basis.
Black-eyed kids.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Black-eyed kids.
What did I say?
Black
we-
kids.
You, we might want to.
Black-eyed kids.
For everyone that listens or
I'm
watches
sorry,
this,
guys.
that was a typo out of his mouth.
Oh man.
He absolutely
embarrassing.
did
No,
not
it's funny.
do
I'm
that
sorry, guys.
whatsoever.
Oh,
Apologize.
guys, you can let black kids into your house. It's fine. They're not going to cause nosebleeds or anything. Don't let the black-eyed kids into your home. They cause cancer. Black kids good, black-eyed kids bad.
Holy- you can't make that. You cannot make that shit up.
Oh my god.
I had no idea I said it. I'm sorry, guys. I was just
His brain for a second was like, "Eek."
oh man. Oh, okay. Since we let the black-eyed kids inside our home,
Oh.
I've suffered from regular dizzy spells and nosebleeds on a regular basis.
Oh my gosh.
I've had other issues which I won't mention here, but trust me when I say I am suddenly in the worst condition of my life, and no one can do anything about it. I know that all of this is because I let the black-eyed children into my home. We've told everyone we could about the strange kids that showed up that night, but no one else saw them. And some laugh at how scared we are of the Mennonite kids, but we know what we saw. I wish my husband had never opened the door.
Wow.
So other than my accidental bout of racism, that story, it's one of the only ones I can find
Ooh.
that they actually let them in. And I know people can say, well, it's coincidence. No.
No.
Three
No.
cats gone, your cat in a puddle of blood, your husband with dizzy spells and nosebleeds, you
And cancer.
and cancer, and cancer that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And how quickly it came on.
And then her also having medical issues. That
Yeah.
I mean, she didn't go into it, but like,
To me, it almost makes me
poor pigeon.
think, what if these children like radiate some sort of like radiation?
Yeah.
Because that's what it comes off to me. Radiation poisoning will cause cancers, it'll cause nosebleeds, it'll cause dizziness.
I mean, it could also cause what happened to the cat too.
Yeah. A high dose of radiation.
That could also actually attribute a little bit to that feeling that people get, that uneasy feeling that people get when they see them. Obviously, there is an aura of, ominous and, scary, things about them in general, but, an actual physical radiation that like your body is receiving that your brain can't process, like can also contribute to that feeling of fear.
Yeah.
If it's that strong to make you that sick that fast, you got to be able to physically feel it somehow in like a weird way.
And what also bothers me is this is the only case that I could find of adult black-eyed children, if you want to call them adult black, like what the fuck is their parents?
Yeah, I actually kind of expected the story to go differently, like when they were saying that their parents were on their way kind of thing. Like the black-eyed kids are kind of like, the bait or the lure. And then Big Daddy comes once they're hooked. You know what I mean? Like, I was expecting something bigger and scarier. Not them like coming and getting them and leaving. That's weird to me.
I almost think it's scarier the way it happened, though. I could understand a big ass fucking monster coming in and wrecking the place, but just and here's the thing. The kids weren't like, from what I read, they weren't looking out the window. They're just like, oh, our parents are here. Get up, walk out the door.
Yeah, they just knew.
Mm-mm.
And that is what, again, you read a lot of is these beings are almost connected mentally.
Like a hive mind kind of thing? Or telepathic?
It's, yeah. And so
I mean, the telepathicness would also kind of make sense with the, like, being able to suggest those types of things and have you listen to them, like having some sort of telepathic ability, them being able to, like, persuade you to do things makes sense.
That's what I was thinking too.
Yeah.
So I know this episode has dragged on a little bit longer than most of my other ones, but there was just, I kept finding new things, and I had to share them.
Well,
because what?
Some episodes can go longer.
No, it's not. I'm just, this next one was a super interesting thing, and this is where the fairies come in.
Mm-hmm.
The last story I'm going to share is one that I found very interesting because it's another possible idea on these children. The theory is that they may be, in fact, a type of fairy. This final story comes from Ireland. So.
Yes. Good old Ireland.
I should send this to you to read out in your Irish accent because you're so good at it. So I am originally from Ireland. I moved to the States roughly 20 years back. This story takes place in County Clare, Ireland, when I was about 15 years old. One afternoon, I was walking through the woods near my home. First fucking mistake. I was alone. Second fucking mistake. I was a loner in my youth, and I would often stroll the woods until I found a tree to sit beneath and write. Writing has always been my hobby. My point is that I was very familiar with these woods. I felt safe there. On this particular day, I was walking a path to a specific tree that was my favorite to sit beneath. The sounds of the woods were all around me. There was a gentle breeze, and while I couldn't see the birds, I could hear them. It was comforting. Then it all stopped. Everything became unnaturally still. The air was still, the birds stopped twittering, and I no longer heard a single thing.
Mm-mm.
Mm-hmm. That's when you just back up. Just don't turn your back. But just
I'm gonna go back to where the sound was at. Yeah, so
stop. Don't pay any attention to it. Keep your head forward and just walk backwards.
Yeah.
Because nope.
First off, you shouldn't be in the woods by yourself, dumbass.
Oh man. Oof.
I had never experienced this before. It was as if I had suddenly become deaf. There was just nothing. No sound, no movement, no breeze. At this point, I started to become anxious. No shit. I wasn't yet afraid, but I started home anyway. The feeling in the woods was not what I was used to. I was no longer comforted, so I decided to go home. It was then that I saw movement from the corner of my eye.
Nope.
Nothing I could pinpoint, but a dark shape that was just there. Did Zara just scare you?
The dog scared the shit out of me.
Did you see her jump, Chris?
I saw her head turn real quick towards the door.
Oh, that's funny. Anyway, but a dark shape that was just there. And then it wasn't.
Nope.
Everything else was still that eerie calm. I started to walk faster. And then the black shape again. This time on my other side. Now I was afraid. I began to run. I still heard nothing, but I was sure something was chasing me. Well, yeah, you fucking ran.
Fucking run.
You don't want to look like prey.
Nope.
When I reached my home, I ran inside and slammed the door, fully expecting my mom to yell at me for slamming. But she wasn't there. In fact, nobody was home. That was a bit odd, but not unheard of. Finally, gaining some sanity, I decided I needed tea. So I began to boil the water for tea. And then there was a knock at the door.
Nope. Nope.
Yeah, after all that, the knock on the door, I would have been like,
Knock, knock, knock.
No. And then you just yell, nope, nope, nope.
I jumped. My heart rose to my throat. Nobody knocked in these parts. It was a small village where everybody knew everyone else. Everyone was family. There was no knocking. There was a friendly, oi there. And then people came in. So a knock was strange. I crept over to the glass in the door and peeked out. I noticed two things right away that terrified and confused me. The first was a child, a girl of maybe 10 or 12, looking at me. Not looking at me, but at her feet. The second thing scared me to my toes. It was getting dark. How was that possible? I had left to go on my walk in midday. The sun had been fully out, and I had been gone no longer than 40 minutes. How then was it dark? I looked at the clock. It was almost 7. How? How had I misplaced 5 hours? The knock came again, and I jumped again. I didn't open the door.
Smart.
I called out, oi there, can I help you? I can't do the Irish accent, so I'm not going to do it. The girl didn't look up. She just said, I need to come in. Please let me in. She had no accent. She wasn't Irish. There was no lilt to her voice. She sounded American. I called out again and said, I can't let you in, but I'll ring someone if you need help. The child still didn't look up. She said, no, that won't work. I need to come in. So again, they have to come inside. At this point, I had had enough of the strange, scary child. She was freaking me out. I wanted my mom. I wanted my dad. I wanted to know where 5 hours of my life had gone. And I was so frightened at this point that not even tea was going to help.
I mean, it could help. Splash, hit, go.
Just don't open the door.
Score.
So I did what any teenage girl would do when I was faced with a situation such as this. I screamed and ran to my bed, covered myself with my blanket, and waited for my mom to come home. Sounds about right.
Best
Sounds
defense mechanism.
Very
the blanket.
accurate.
I'm just going to
Very
throw this out here. It's not just teenage girls. It is 30-year-old men will run to their bed and hide under their blankets because I'm going to do that. She would cry and do that. And I would do that.
I would cry and do that. So
that's true. You both are criers.
Yeah, oh yes, we're fully aware of that.
I am too.
We've cried together, so I mean,
No,
that's fair.
that's, yeah.
Bachelor party. I turn around and you two are just drunk off your ass. Fucking just Jalen and I are sitting there drunk, going, "Hey, buddy."
you know, you
That's
just
like every time that I've ever been like legitimately scared, like crying is actually the last thing that I'm able to bring myself to do. Like any time that I've ever legitimately been scared, it turns off. I can't fucking cry.
Here's the thing for me too. Blankets don't protect you anymore because the grudge ruined that.
I
Yes,
have like a
yes, it
mental
did.
image of where every single weapon in our house is, and
I sleep with an axe next to my bed, a little throwing
to
axe.
be completely honest, knowing my comfort level and knowing like, I mean, we don't keep guns in the house or anything, but I mean, we have weapons, but I would probably go get my Harley Quinn bat.
Yeah.
It is a solid wood bat.
I'll go get Frostmourne.
That's too heavy. That's too heavy.
Chris has got lots of gun in his house, so
that's what's funny is you guys like baseball bat Frostmourne. I got Mr. Glocky and Mr. 1911. How you doing?
How you doing? No, I would probably just like go get my bat and lock myself in the bathroom.
I just wouldn't open the door. These guys, it seems
I would also
to be...
not open the door, but I would also lock myself in the bathroom.
Yeah.
They start knocking on the bathroom window. Fuck!
Well, it's on the second floor.
I would shit myself if that happened. I mean,
well, if you're locked in the bathroom, you got a toilet. So
see, I'm thinking ahead.
So this was pre-cellular phones, and I was not going to risk going to the kitchen to phone someone.
Nope.
Plus, I had no idea who I would call. The girl was still knocking on the door.
Nope.
but she never moved to a window or to the back door. She just stayed at the front door.
Phew.
After a while, I got my nerve up to go check again. It had been silent for a bit. I went to the door and looked out the glass. The girl was still there, but she was no longer at the door. She was sitting on the fence. She was no longer looking down. She was looking right at me.
Oh no.
And in this fading light, I looked at her eyes and they were pitch black. I screamed again and ran back to the safety of my blanket. Babe, I can just picture you looking at someone like down the road a little bit and still by yourself going, ah! And running to the...
See, no, because my reaction, if there's something, I'm not.
Okay, let me rephrase that. Chris, I can see
Yeah.
you looking out your door and going, ah! And running back to
There's, everyone
Yeah,
talks
pretty
about,
much.
you're either fight or flight. You're either fight or flight. Nah, bitch, I'm freezing, can't fucking move. I'm neither. I would seriously, like, if it was looking at me and I'm looking at it and I noticed it was looking at me, I wouldn't be able to fucking move my body. I would freeze and I would live there. It's like, okay, well, I see you, you see me. One of us
Just
is
live
fucking
there.
gonna move first.
Well, this is my place now.
Am I just gonna stare? Because if I move, I don't know where it is.
You know what I'm thinking with that now? Since she went back, looked out the window, and saw the black eyes at this point, she pops out the window. Oi, bitch, you ain't getting in now.
You're definitely not coming in now.
Eventually,
Fuck you.
Haha, fuck you.
Fuck you.
Eventually, my mom came home. I told her what happened. She decided that it was my overactive imagination. But she did call down to the shops and the pub to find out if anyone in town had an American family visiting or if anyone knew who the girl was. Nobody did. My grandmother told me that I had survived an encounter with the Fae, so fairies, and that I was lucky. The Fae are said to be evil and will kidnap children in the woods near a fairy hill. She was the only one who ever believed me. I never saw the girl again, and I never had missing time again. I never felt the absolute stillness in the woods again when I got up the courage to go back, which I would never fucking go back.
Nope. That woods is in the back. That's it. No.
I'm not going into woodses.
Nope.
After I moved to
I'll go to that one, not that one.
After I moved to the States and years later, I heard of black-eyed children. My story seemed to coincide with that, but that's ridiculous, right? I still have no explanation. Demon, fairy, ghost, black-eyed child, I don't know, but it happened. I swear to that. And then there was an update to this story, and it said I phoned my gran. Gran at this point is well into her 90s and doesn't understand the interwebs, as she calls them, instead of the internet. I asked her a bit more about the limitation of fairies. She had some input that I shall share with you here. I'll do my best to use her words. She said that the Fae are divided into two groups, those that are evil and collect souls, specifically of children, to act as slaves to the Fae King, and those that are kind and who like and help humans. That right there fucking terrifies me, because if these guys are fairies, these potentially could be souls of children
That they've taken.
Mhm. And that's
Oh,
why I said the
man.
changeling thing.
Mhm.
That's horrifying that they're enslaved to go and capture more children. It is said that the evil Fae are in fact known to take the shape of a human child or a beautiful woman, depending on the prey, as those are the two shapes that are most pleasing and will garner the most sympathy from humans. She did not have information regarding the eyes of the Fae, but she did say that the Fae cannot enter a person's home because that it is protected by human energy. She did not know if they could enter if invited, but she didn't see why not, since that would lower the guard that surrounds the home. My gran has never heard of black-eyed children. However, she did say that when the Irish first came to America, they brought relics and pieces of the fairy hills with them. She said another thing that I didn't even ask her about, but she gave me without prompt. She said that the Fae are attracted to the thoughts of themselves, meaning that if you spend a great deal of time thinking of or speaking of them, you are more likely to come across one. I thought that was Interesting, since I didn't ask her about that. But if I remember correctly, that is part of the Black-Eyed Kids lore. As a final thought, she said you can protect yourself by salting your windows and doors and saging the inside of your home.
Supernatural.
Yeah,
Again,
right.
again, the salt makes me think demon, though.
I mean, salt worked on fairies too. I love that episode of Supernatural where he's trying to beat the fairy and he fucking pops off the salt rock cap and throws it over his shoulder because a fairy in that lore, they have to pick up and count every grain of salt. So he's getting his ass beat. Sam is. He's getting his ass beat by this fairy. And he just, and the fairy's like, and he sits down and starts counting, and then they get him. That's also the same episode where Dean is like, gets his ass beat by a little Tinkerbell. He looks at her and he's like, boobs? And then she pimp smacks him. And yeah, it's fun. Anyway, I am generally, I don't know if the demon, I'm leaning towards more fae.
I think if there are fae and fairies, it's not necessarily in the Tinkerbell aspect that we think, like, that we have been trained to think that fairies are.
No.
Like, fae creatures, I mean, they're not limited to just these cute little winged creatures. No. Like, fae would be a broad spectrum.
So if you read into
creatures,
fairy lore, which I actually want to do an episode on fairies in general.
Yeah.
But if you read into fairy lore, they're all about balance. There's two sides. There's in like the Dresden Files, the winter, and because it's the winter court and the summer court. Mm-hmm. Titania and Mad. Those are the two queens, and this is very. But the dark side of fairies are fucked up. You got the changelings, you got trolls, you got goblins, you got pixies. I mean, all of these are considered fae. Trolls. Did I already say trolls?
You did.
I did. Trolls twice.
Trolls times two.
If I had to, I'm curious what you guys think. If I had to put my money on, spirit, demon, fairy, I lean towards the fairies more. Because a lot of the lore that you get from the fairies matches with the Black-Eyed Kids. A lot of it. I'm thinking you're leaning towards demon, aren't you?
I don't know as much about the lore and the facts side of mythological creatures of that sense, like with the fae and stuff. I also have a very hard time in my mind grasping the idea of split realms, which kind of tends to go hand in hand with the fae.
Well, yeah, the Feywild is basically a mirror image of our reality, but
and that to me is hard to grasp. Whereas because of my own personal beliefs and because of my own personal experiences, I do believe in spirits and demons in this world. And so I have, just from my own mind, I gravitate towards that side of things being a little bit more logical and feasible, I guess, in our world than the fae and this other realm and these other creatures that seem a little bit more otherworldly to me. But I love the idea of it. I think it's amazing and interesting. But in my brain, it doesn't seem as realistic or feasible.
It was
if that makes sense.
Yeah, it was such a cool take on them because I had never thought fairy. This was the only case that I saw fairy on. And so digging deeper into it and looking at the lore and stuff to them, I'm like, oh my God, these are fucking fairies. They're fucked up fairies, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. What about you, Chris? What do you think? Are you leaning spirit, demon, fairy? What do you think?
I mean, I'm on the fence between demon and fairy. Honestly, I lean more towards demon, kind of like what Kyla said. Not saying that fairies aren't real. I have a harder time wrapping my head around fairy than I do demon.
Yes, that's exactly how it is.
Demonic. Yeah.
My only problem with the demons is demons have never had an issue just possessing someone. Just going into houses and
that's true.
Fucking with people. I mean, there's even stories if you go into the Warrens, they don't just fucking possess people, they possess dead spirits to fuck with people. And the Warrens are all based on true stories. Now, I'm not saying they're true. I'm just saying it's all based on true stories.
Yeah.
And I mean, Fred what is it, the second one? this demon, spoilers, this demon possesses this old man's spirit.
It's not Fred, it's Bill.
Bill, sorry, why do I keep calling it Fred?
I don't know. It's Bill Wilkins.
Bill Wilkins. We need to watch that again.
Oh my god, they're so good. But I don't know. Like I really would love to believe in these things, but I think I just don't know enough about it to make a logical choice of whether or not I believe it.
Chris, I don't know if you remember, but you and I think I'm a little more open to like Loch Ness, Bigfoot, you know, those sort of things. Cryptids,
Yeah.
supernatural. I'm more into that. But I distinctly remember, and maybe you will, Chris, you and I were sitting out on that fence at the yard, that that fence we built.
Yep, sure do.
You and I went out there. It was a summer night. We were looking up at the stars and we got talking about supernatural shit. And you and I both agreed that we feel like there are too many things out there and the world is too boring for there not to be more.
That's true.
Do you remember that conversation? Because for some reason,
it
sticks out with me.
I mean, I do remember us having that conversation. I don't remember exactly how it went, but I do remember us having that conversation.
Then again, you and I had conversations like that all the goddamn time.
Oh, all the time.
Because we're nerds. Anyway, that's Black Eyed Kids. I love the fact that I got both of you scared this time. Especially you. You were tripping out. I could tell with the hair.
I'm not going to sleep tonight. I still feel like I'm going to throw up.
I'm probably going to put Ghost Adventures on because I'm stupid.
But anyway, guys, that is Black Eyed Children. Black Eyed Kids, whichever you want to call them.
Leave us a comment or email us or on our Instagram, wherever you follow us. Give us some sort of comment somewhere on your take of it. Like, if you guys think, are they demons? Are they fake creatures? Or are they something completely different?
If you guys or listen on Spotify, I will put a question down there that you guys can answer. And I'll put that up on there that says, do you believe they are demons, spirits, or fake?
You can also put it in the Instagram.
Yeah, I'll do it on the Instagram story
and have them do a poll there as well, because I'm very curious on what other people think.
Yeah. So before we go, we've got a couple episodes in the works. This one's going to do Suicide Forest soon.
I'm also going to do lycanthropes.
Yeah, she's going to do war creatures in general. Chris is working on haunting.
I am working on, and I'll just kind of give you so I'm working on the haunted island of Pavalia.
That'll be our
Italy.
first haunting episode, technically.
Yes, it will. Well, if you
besides
count
the catacombs, I don't count that. I do not count that as like a haunting.
Yeah, no, this one is more. And Chris sent me a video clip that's pretty gnarly from there. So I'm not going to give any more away, but we've got a few things in the works. I've got a few things in the works of myself. Some serial killers, which she probably won't be here for, but Chris will probably be here for.
And Serena.
And Serena will be here for the Toy Box Killer when we finally get to him. A couple other cryptids, but I'm not sure what we'll do next. If Chris is done in time, we'll get him out or get his haunting one for Friday. If not, I've got a couple already worked up that we can do. But yeah, we got lots planned. So get used to his face, because he should be here hopefully as much as possible.
Beautiful, beautiful face.
I will be here as much as I can.
His beautiful ginger face.
Yes, anyways, I gotta grow the beard back out. So
right.
Yes.
When you don't have it, it shows off the chub. Not just you. I did it too for Halloween. I freaking shaved. I'm like, oh, I'm fatter than I thought I was.
Got this awesome double chin.
Anyway, thank you guys for listening, and we will see you in the next episode. So, bye.
Bye, guys.